everybody out here, it's Evan with The Plugs. I'm here with Chris and Marshall. We have a very special guest today, Josue Sanchez. He is a missionary, as well as comes from a generation of church planners. He has some very inspirational stories to share with you about his time out in the field. Very honored and blessed to have him here today. Welcome, Josue.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
It's been a blessing for me to be here. You guys have been a blessing to me. The time we've been spending here together, you have inspired me. God can always use us in a tremendous way, even when we don't plan it to.
Amen.
You know, we never know how he's going to work. A father's life as a missionary, and not only in Cuba, but here in the United States, you know, and how we ended up, being here, and, and came about. And if, like I said, I'm kind of going to be all over the place, but to start out is, my father was born to a 16-year-old lady that she was violated by the guy she was working for. So back in those days, you know, usually you come home as a woman pregnant, your family puts you out. So they put her out. And she, I remember in Cuba when I went to the times that I would go to visit my grandma's house, his mother's house, it was a shack, probably maybe 4x8.
Wow.
With she had to go use the bathroom, outside. There was just enough there for a cot, and that's where she was living. And she was trying to raise him there, and then he was 2 years old. She said when a businessman came by and offered to buy him from her.
Whoa.
Now she's 18 years old. She didn't see any future for him. So she thought the best thing to do was sell him to this guy. He's a businessman. He can take care of him.
It's a better opportunity.
She thought it was a better opportunity. So that's what she did. At that time, she wasn't a Christian. She didn't know anything, Fast forward later on, she became, she came to know Christ. And she regretted it the rest of her life, for doing that. This guy that took my dad raised him basically like a slave. Had him do all kinds of labors. He wouldn't even live in his house. Let him stay in the house. He lived in the street. Stayed at my mom's cousin's house most of the time. So he became even in the country, basically he was a street rat. And then one of the farmers that started a professional baseball team, and he started playing, ball with that guy for that team.
Yep.
And what was considered professional in Cuba, because you're being paid. I asked him I asked my mom how much was he being paid. It was $20 a week, but it wasn't. But we're talking about the 40s or whatever it was. So anyway, so he wanted to be a professional baseball player, and then he said, but now he's in his early 20s. There was a missionary that came from the United States. We were from Santa Clara, Cuba, and she was going on and doing outreach with the baseball players, and he said that she was always trying to invite him to church, and he says, the typical Hispanic, I'm Catholic, we're all Catholics, So he says this. So finally, she was in the dugout one day, and she invited him. He says, well, I tell you what, would you leave me alone if I come to church with you? And she says, yes. So he went to church that day, ended up getting saved. Now he went from wanting to be a baseball player to being a pastor.
Wow.
He had gone through school. He had difficulty, but he dropped out by the 4th grade. Yep. His reading was terrible. Language and all. He could speak fine, but he wasn't, highly educated. But he got engulfed in studying the Bible. The man in the church, which was La Primera Iglesia Bautista de Santa Clara, First Baptist Church Santa Clara, they took him under their wings. They showed him, one thing is how to be a man, how to be a Christian. They modeled that for him. And so he started studying the Bible. And started doing Bible studies with them. They were teaching him. You know, a lot of times we think, oh, we have to go to college, we have to do this. Or if my pastor has highly trained and he mentors me, why do I need to spend 4 years in a college?
Yep.
You know, if I'm going through that mentorship.
Exactly.
You know, and through
discipleship.
Exactly,
Yep.
Exactly, which what we were supposed to do. You know, where we're to build. You know, as a missionaries, you go in and you plant a church, and then that church, you know, they disciple. You know, we go back and we disciple the pastor there, help him, but we don't stay there. You know, we let him, you know, build from his, you know, his own people.
Yes.
So, anyways, so he became a lay minister which was there was various small church buildings in our city, and where the First Baptist Church in Santa Clara would have meetings with, but they were in rough neighborhoods, and nobody wanted to go there. So my dad, I guess through his upbringing, he felt the need to go to these people. So he chose to go to the worst neighborhoods to go and have services. And he started ministering to those people. Communism came along. He was arrested for standing in a street corner carrying a Bible and preaching. I remember them sharing the stories of seeing Che Guevara and his men line people up outside of the house and kill them. They had a firing squad and they murdered them all in front of their families.
What was the law under communism with Christianity or religion in general? What was the general law with that?
Well, the first thing they did was close the church.
Close the church.
Che Guevara, his idea was, and you know, and all the communists think alike. But one of the things he said is, if we close the church and take away the Bible, we take away hope from the people, because Christianity builds hope. Now he doesn't believe in God. He didn't believe in God.
No.
You know, he thought we were all fools and all that, but yet he had smart enough to, it was like, if I take this away from the people, I can destroy them. Oh, that's what he thought. You know, so Dad was arrested several times, and then they went into hiding. They were in hiding for about 6 months. Him and my mom, and out in the countryside. I remember they said they survived. He would take a shot of wine and put an egg in it, a raw egg, and he was drink that. That was his meal for the day. Whoa. And eat mustard seed, a mustard plant, the leaves, and he would eat that. So they survived on that for 6 months.
Wow.
You know, their meals.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when he, as life went on, then my mom had my older brother. And like I said, I'm going to be kind of random all over the place. But here is the thing: is the fact that she had my older brother, myself, and I was a miracle, because she was told she would never be able to have children. She was 7 months pregnant with my older brother, and wearing maternity clothes. And the doctor said, you know, you're just one of those crazy people that think, you know, they're pregnant, but I'm going to go ahead and do a test on you. And then boom, she's pregnant. She had him. 17 months later, I came along. They told her she needed to abort me because I would never form properly. If she would either die giving birth to me, or I would die, or both. One of us wasn't going to survive this. Yeah. So she needed to abort me, and if I did survive, I would end up being in a vegetative state for the rest of my life.
And what year was that?
I was born in '62.
Sorry, tell us.
Yes, I'm sorry. No problem. Hey, I'm 58 years old, and I've for years people have asked me my age, and I've always wanted to be older.
Yeah.
I'm one of those weird people. A lot of people want to be younger.
Okay.
I always wanted to be older.
Okay.
So is it the wisdom thing?
I don't know. So I start claiming my birth. I was telling my bride, I said, okay, we're born. Our birth is when at conception.
Yeah.
So I said, so a few months after my birthday, I start claiming my next year. So I'm 59 years old, actually, which makes her mad, because she hangs on to the last day.
Oh, man. Not bad.
And we're the same age. She says, quit telling people that because they think I'm older. I'm old as you. I'm like, you are.
Oh my gosh.
It's a valid point, though. You know that you're sitting in front of us right now. You were
Yes.
born in 1962.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
even in those times, we're talking, over 50 years from now,
Yes.
they wanted to, hey, listen, your kid might not come out right with all your arms and legs like it's some car or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the color's not red, so how about we just cancel the order?
Exactly.
And look at you, though. And,
Yes.
And I can't wait to hear all the things that you're going to tell us about what you've done, what you've experienced. When you were, they tried to keep you off this earth. I wonder why.
Yeah, well, real quick, I want to talk about the divine synchronicity. We had an episode with Tiger where Marshall mentioned this story with Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Same exact situation where his mother was asked to abort him, and look at what he's done.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. You never know what God has planned for us.
Exactly.
At 6 months old, it turns out what I had was sickle cell anemia. So, which you have to have so many blood transfusions throughout your life. So, at 6 months old, I had a total blood transfusion. It was from the only person in town that that we matched. And it's funny how people say, what is the religion that believes that you can't have the Jehovah's Witness. You can't have a blood transfusion because you have a blood transfusion from an alcoholic. You're going to end up being an alcoholic. I got a blood transfusion from an alcoholic. I've never drank beer, wine, or anything alcoholic in my life. So that blows that theory. But, and it was 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and my dad wasn't there because he was at church.
Yeah.
And, and so it was tough for my mom, as I went through that. But like I said, 6 months later, when I had the total blood transfusion, then they said, he'll probably never live past his teen years. Mm-hmm. Now I wear leg braces. My kids, they said, you mean like Forrest Gump? I said, yes, like Forrest Gump. I wear those.
Wow.
I said, I was called a retard.
For how long did you wear this?
I wore them until I was 9 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
I
long
would
time.
wear them at least as possible. And then they started getting rods in my shoes. I started wearing boots. And then which people would make fun of me because they said they looked like women boots.
Oh.
So by the time we got to the United States, I said, no, I'm not wearing these anymore. I don't want that. I'm tired of being made fun of. I had bronchial asthma lifelong. I've had tuberculosis. I have chronic bronchitis. Yeah, I got asthma. I've had all these breathing issues that comes along with that.
Yep.
And then all this time knowing that, okay, I probably won't live past my teen years. I'm probably never going to have another blood transfusion. I'm never going to live that. And then here I am 58 years, and it is like, I don't know what God had for me. And I still don't, because I don't think we always know the full, it is always evolving, things that he has for us to do. And I'm always, so every time that I've gone either to the hospital, I've coded a couple times, and I come back, and my mother used to say, you're like a weed. No matter how many times you pull it up, it just keeps coming back. And you're always healing.
The odds were against you from the beginning, too,
Yes.
which is crazy. So
Yeah, and it's always like,
Yep.
and my father said, God has something for you.
Absolutely.
God has something for you.
What age were you, that you started knowing God and talking to Him?
I think because of when you grow up in I think sometimes the worst thing to do is growing up in the home of a pastor. Mm-hmm. My father lived the life at home as on the pulpit. So I was not one of those some preachers will say something on the pulpit and then at home they're different. Oh no. It was the same exact. There was no difference.
Solid rock.
It was solid all the way. So I didn't. But the bad part was, and it's not bad, but I guess it is. I knew so much Bible, and I knew so much things, and then I had been hurt so much that I think I talked myself into salvation. Mm-hmm. Now, Dad always explained to me from a young age, you know what? You can't get saved through me. Your salvation, he says, you can die and you're going to go to hell if you don't have Christ in you. Mm-hmm. So it's not from what I have been teaching you. That's something that you have to do. Mm-hmm. It's between you and God. Mm-hmm. When God's calling you. And so I would come forward. I don't know how many times I went forward. Yes, I'm, for salvation. Went forward and went forward and forward. Yep. And I talked myself into that. And because I could check off all the lists. Mm-hmm. I know this and I know that and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And it wasn't until actually I was teaching this young man at First Baptist in Middleburg that I actually got saved.
During the Sunday school time?
After that.
Whoa.
Wow.
I was 39 years old.
Wow.
Because, and then the salvation became, I understood that it's Christ calling me, and the change that came into my life.
Yeah.
What am I to do? Instead of just playing this part. Because up to that day, up to that time, I had taught Sunday school. I had been ordained. I had done everything. So you're thinking, oh, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because, and then you start checking off, and it's like, well, he's done this, but I haven't done that. Well, I don't drink alcohol. I don't do this. I don't womanize. I don't do this. I'm okay. But are you? You're not. Because, I did not have a personal relationship with Christ. I had a relationship up here, but my relationship wasn't here.
You're right.
Wasn't
It's like
built
a
in.
scientific and behavioral relationship, which leads to a lot of people in those situations when the Bible talks about people getting to heaven and God says, I don't know you.
I don't know you.
I don't know you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I did all these things, but I don't know you.
Exactly. And that was a tough decision
Yeah.
to go forward. And because you think pride or shame or whatever kicks in, it's like, man, what are these people going to think?
Yeah.
It's that ego. Yep.
All this time, then you got to admit to your kids. Because now my kids are, late in their teens, and I'm like, are they going to think what I've been teaching them is a farce all these years?
Yeah.
So it became but then it became a reality, what I'm meant to do for Christ. And we'll go back, but right now that we're that far forward, I'm going to share one of the things is when God calls you to missions, go then, don't wait till later. Because it wasn't until that time I said, you know what, the calling that my dad said, God has had purpose for me, and that's why I'm alive, and that's why I'm doing these things. That's why I'm still here, that's why I'm survived. He has a calling for you. And I would say, Dad, because he's deceased now, he passed away in 2012, but we would talk every month, and he would call me and he said, well, what are you doing for Christ? That was the first question. And sometimes I regretted talking to him because I knew he was going to do that. But that wasn't because it was bad. That's because of I knew I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So my own guilt, my own whatever was like, I don't really want to talk to him. Let me see if I can get past this real quick. Get past that first point because that's the first thing he's going to hit me with. That's the first thing he's going to hit me with. And he was always like, what are you doing for Christ? Well, Dad, I'm teaching Sunday school. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. He says, yeah, some people are called that can do that. Worship in the church and get together is. But God's called you for more than that. I'm like, yeah, but my kids are all, they still got 2 left at home. I can't go to the mission field right now.
Yeah.
So I waited, and by the time they were all gone and all that, then as my age became a factor in doing what I could have been doing. And that's one thing I tell people. I said, that's why I said now, if God calls you, go now. Don't look at, I got 4 kids, got a wife, I got to take care of this, I got to take care of that. Because I went from a person born in a communist country, living on faith, depending on God, to getting caught up in the American dream. And God is good because, I got this, so I'm taking care of this and this and that. Well, my dad always said, God is good regardless of the situation we're in.
That's right.
Whether we're living in a dumpster
That's right.
Yep.
or we're living in a mansion.
That's right.
When he got, and I was 3 years old when he applied to leave to come to the United States. You had to have people here in the United States sponsor you. He had a cousin, and my mom lived in California. My mom had a cousin that lived in Miami. Then my parents put together $1,500 and put in the paperwork. They came in, the government officials came into the house. They took inventory of everything in the house. Every table, spoon, everything except your clothing. Okay? And when it said, so the day that your turn comes to leave, everything's not here, you won't be able to leave. It was also that day that they took him out of the house and put him into that concentration camp. Yes, they do have concentration camps in Cuba.
Wow.
People were being killed at these camps. You're working for no pay. So what they did was, at first they started taking Christians and homosexuals and putting them in the same, because they figured there's this misconception that Christians hate homosexuals. There may be some that do, but not all of them.
Yep.
Okay? And so they put him in there. And so my dad said, I remember him sharing, he says, what they thought they were doing to harm me, they did it for God's purpose. And we didn't see that. I didn't see that as a little kid, because now my dad's not at home, but he's saying, now I got a captive audience. I can share the gospel with these people, and they can't go anyplace.
Yes.
Because it's not like going to church and I'm tired of listening to the pastor. I'm leaving.
You got nowhere to go.
These people have nowhere to go, so they can't get away from me. So he started sharing the gospel with these people.
Saw the lotus flower in the mud.
That's right.
The guard, I don't know if the guard of the camp ever was a Christian or not,
Yeah.
but I know he would conveniently let my dad escape once a month, at least. Later on, I remember seeing my dad would come home once a month, and he would be having the church where we met. The pastor was arrested, so he was no longer there. Everybody scattered. Kind of the same thing was happening in the United States today, where the church shut its doors. We're having an old online church and all that. Okay, what they did was, the people were afraid because of what they're going to do, because they were killing people. I understand that.
Yeah.
My dad says, okay, fine, we won't meet in the open. We're going to have secret church. So we started meeting in houses. In these same rough neighborhoods, they were starting meeting. I remember they were bored. The little missions that I was telling you about, where he would go in and preach. They would break down. I remember breaking down the boards and sneaking in, and then also he would have service there. The neighborhood, this is how bad the neighborhood was. In some places, if you're bad, you're doing music, they'll throw tomatoes. This place, the people, I don't know where they got it from. They would get feces from the animals. They would throw it at you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that nice of a neighborhood.
Next level.
Yeah, and I'm like, Dad, why do we always get called to the rough areas? It's like, I didn't say that then. I said that here in the United States, because here the minister he started in the United States was working with the migrant workers down in the Braid, Manatee, Sarasota County area.
Beautiful.
And they were in the really rough neighborhoods and really bad. And I'm like, why do we always get called to these places?
Yeah.
Because nobody else wants to go.
That's right.
People want to share the gospel, but they want to go to where they feel comfortable.
Exactly.
He would go. He was like, God would protect me. My dad was 5'8", 135 pounds, so he wasn't a big guy. I'm as a teenager was already 5'10", 200 and some pounds, and was towering him. I was very, very strong. So my mom would say, when we go to these camps, she said, I know God's going to protect him, but you go with him too. So I was his bodyguard. But Dad would, as through his life in Cuba, and that church, those churches that he planted, were those house churches, where he planted, what he did, we never knew what we were going to see. Because, we always pray to see God's plan. God, what do you have for my life? And I learned from him, it's like, don't do that, because you may not like what you're going to see.
Right.
It's not going to be cheerful sometimes. Just how can I best work for you, Lord? What can you do through me, through this situation? One of those churches is in La Vigía there in Santa Clara, in a really rough neighborhood. A few years ago, I was at a Baptist church over here in Fleming Island. You know where that's at. I don't know if these young men do.
Yeah.
But anyway, not far from here.
Yeah.
And there was some people there from Cuba. Afterwards, we got to talking. She's from Santa Clara, same province I'm from. Ask her what side of town where she went to church. She says, "Oh, La Vigía." The hairs of my arms just stood up.
Ooh.
I said, "Really? Tell me about it."
Yeah.
There was like 60 people meeting, and they're on fire for God. I said, my dad planted that church.
Got chills.
Ooh, me too, man.
I
I got
never would have
goosebumps.
expected,
Yeah.
once you leave Cuba, you lose contact, it's like, wow. These people came from my same province, and Usually, most people say like they're from La Habana. Even if they're from Santa Clara, they say from La Habana because La Habana is a big city. Santa Clara, we're the rednecks of the island. Nobody wants to claim they're a redneck. But, and then I'm like, wow. You know, and this young lady is also on fire for God and thinks she's doing it, but I'm like, he planted that. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's still going, and here we are. We left Cuba in 1971 when our ticket came up that we were allowed to leave. And when I met her was in 2009, I think it is.
Wow.
So many years later.
So many years.
Getting to planting.
Yeah. So, you know, so his work was always, you know, God is going to use me to the, you know, for his glory. He would always preach the gospel whether he got paid or not. Mm-hmm. The church he planted here in the once he started at, we're at Bay Haven Baptist Church, which is no longer in existence there in Sarasota, Florida. Mm-hmm. In 1971, the head pastor there found out my dad had come to the United States. He knew him from Cuba. Mm-hmm. We were living in Miami at the time. Life in Miami was hell, and then it was bad. We were living in an area that was called Liberty City, if you're familiar with that. If you read back where they had the riots and all that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we were getting beat up every single day. I mean, life was rough for us. And my older brother got clubbed with a lead pipe at school. So we were like, man, things were bad in Cuba. Maybe we should go back because things are bad here. So this pastor somehow found out that we were in the States and he needed an assistant. So he comes and speaks to my dad, shows pictures. He's in Sarasota, shows pictures. And we're like, okay, we're going. You know, this was 5 months later. Yep. We moved. And I said, well, we can't pay you. So he started working at a boat factory there. And started was an assistant pastor. So now, you know, he's teaching Sunday school, being the assistant pastor, doing it. Now it's, you know, this is November, next month is Christmas. So that church did what too many churches unfortunately do. They go places during Christmas time and we'll bring in gift. You know, we're bringing this. So what did they do? They went to the migrant camps, which was outside of town. The majority of these people were, if not all of them, were illegal. So they lived in, you know, in hiding places and all that. Yeah. So our church, here's a Spanish Baptist, you know, church. We gather together and do the same things the gringos are doing and taking them gifts, you know, and saying, God loves you, you know, blah, 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 but we don't want you at our place. So my dad says to the pastor, he says, why are those people coming to our church?
Yeah.
He says, we don't want them here. They're different than we are.
Whoa.
So if people say, "Oh, racism happens," I said, "Look, it happens amongst every ethnic group. Also, don't give me that bull about one color to the other. I seen it. You know, the majority of them are Mexicans. I'm Cuban. What happens is Cubans we're very arrogant as a whole. So a lot of times we think we're better than everybody else. Okay, we don't want this uneducated Mexicans here." And my dad is like, "Well, I'm uneducated, you know." So he started having meetings with those people. They banned him from the church. Wow. They kicked him out of the church because they said church discipline.
For loving everybody.
Yeah, church discipline because you're going against.
Back to what you talked about in the concentration camp, though, with him witnessing to the homosexuals in the concentration camp. Same thing. Same love he had for them.
Yes.
Exactly.
Willing to accept anyone.
Yeah. So that's how his ministry started. He's like, fine.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll go find a place and we'll start having meetings. So we found a place, we rented a house, and we started bringing those people to us to have meetings with them. At first it was tough because we went out and bought a van to go pick them up. And it was a green van. And here's why it was tough is because he would go throughout the week and have visitations. Yep. And then he said, on Sunday we're going to come and get you. So we showed up with a green van, and we seen everybody standing out there, and then they disappeared into the fields. Only one person standing there. So he said, what happened? He said, we're driving a green van, so does la migra, which is Spanish for immigration. Okay, so Dad says, okay, let's get a PA system for the van. So we got a PA system, so we were coming into the campus like, we're not immigration, this is Pastor Josue Sanchez. You know, we're coming in for church.
That's hilarious. You scared all
Oh man.
Guess it worked out on both ends.
Yes. So we
Oh,
were
it's okay, man.
So during the
Good
morning,
job.
during the morning, most of the time we were getting the kids because the parents were out working, picking tomatoes or cauliflower, whatever it may be. So in the evening, they would come. So we were having services in the morning, and then we started to, we need to meet services in the evening also. Well, the thing is, they get done in the fields usually about 5 or 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Which means we're going to have service probably about 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock. So Dad would start church services at 8 o'clock. Well, these people would start piling in probably at 9 o'clock. He says, okay, we're starting all over again. So we would be having church service till midnight.
Wow.
Because he said they needed to hear the gospel too.
Right.
So he would be
Making
sharing.
sure everybody gets fed. Yeah.
Now, going through all this is he has absolutely no income because he left Wellcraft. He went out on faith. I got a disabled mother, and then I got an older brother and a younger brother, and we took on part-time jobs doing janitorial cleaning my dad worked on also. It was never about, how much you're going to pay me. He says, I'm going to share the gospel regardless whether they pay me or not. He started that ministry kept building on. And then they started getting, all of a sudden the American churches started finding out they wanted the Spanish congregations to come meet with them. So they started inviting us, hey, we got a place over here you guys can come meet. The problem was they had no idea how different we are. Yes, because we're loud, as you can tell right now. I'm loud. Because we had nobody to play music. We made our own music, so my dad bought tambourines and congos and different things. So there was absolutely nobody who knew how to play music. You just made a noise.
Brought the energy.
Made a joyful noise unto the Lord. It was. I don't know if it was joyful, but it was noisy. And then we didn't have hymnals, so we were the hymns and stuff like he had memorized. Because you got to remember, okay, he's been in this camp for 6 years. This concentration camp, you're not having a Bible, you're not having a hymnals, you're not having all that. So he had memorized these things. So we would go from memories, and then when we got some money, we were able to buy hymnals. So we were in the United States, so you can buy them. We just didn't have the money to buy the things. But as they started inviting us to different churches, the American churches, and then started kicking us out when they found out we were too noisy. And and another thing that went wrong is, because Dad, if we go back, he's ministering to these people that are unchurched. They have no idea what it's like to sit in a church. So they would sit sometimes, and smoke a cigarette. It's like, no, you can't do that in here. Or they would go to the bathroom and smoke a cigarette. It's like, you can't do that in here. So the Americans are like, oh, we can't have you people here. I always love that word.
Yeah.
We can't have you people here. So we got kicked out of that place. And we got invited he got invited to go and speak at Calvary Baptist Church there in Bradenton, a very small Baptist church, whereas they were very mission-minded. They said, they wanted him to speak at the missions conference, which he did. And they wanted us to get involved with the other Spanish missionaries and see how we can connect throughout the United States. And then they gave us a list of churches that we can go in and speak at. And I mean, they were in not California. They went from Bradenton, Florida. The first time I came up to Middleburg was up here, was at Clay Hill now. And went to speak at church there. And then we went all the way to Mexico. We were in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas. Like, we went all over the place and seeking support. And then speaking. And then, the speaking. And then a lot of them had the passion at first to help you, and then that quickly died off. So quickly he raised like $1,200 a month. I was like, oh, we went from doing nothing to $1,200 a month, to living on, when something's going to come. And then there's like, we can't help you this month. So then it dwindled down to $600 a month.